Cyberpunk 2077 has been delayed and gamers are angry. They're not actually that angry though. People are generally being pretty diplomatic with just a tinge of disappointment. They're all too busy making jokes about how the Polish company needs to do some polishing. Ha ha ha, very funny. Frankly, I don't care very much, so I'm just sort of watching the world burn. I've never really cared when games have been delayed, but in some instances, I understand people's passionate impatience. Seeing the reactions to this delay got me thinking a lot about what delays mean, the impact that they have on the games industry, hype culture, all that trash. But first, here's what the tweet said. Basically, the game's getting delayed 5 whole months. That's crazy. Again, I expected anger, but I was wrong. There's some mild disappointment, but you have to realize that this is a fan base that has been waiting for 7 years. It's been 7 years since the release of the first teaser trailer, so that's 7 years that CD Projekt Red has been actively building hype for no reason. So the fan base has a sense of humor about this sort of thing, and they're supportive and they're forgiving. Oh, and of course, the good old Shigeru Miyamoto quote, "A game can't get delayed without that getting posted." All of this made me wonder about why games get delayed, and it's of course important to consider that in the development of these AAA games, it can be really hard to pinpoint the amount of work left, and then the time comes that CD Projekt Red's marketing team comes in and pushes them for a release date so gamers can get excited. The developers are forced to give a wild guess as to when they'll be done, and sometimes they misjudge the amount of work left. Totally understandable, but a little disappointing. Essentially, we have hype culture to blame. Hype has always been a big part of the gaming industry, and personally, I love it. The showmanship that's attached to the E3 presentations,
Peggle 2!
the effort put into video game trailers, it's evidence enough that it's just a truth of the medium that there's going to be this hype culture, and this insistence on the part of the developers to have their game in their audience's mind for long enough, but not for too long, as they keep stringing them along with more and more little teasers for maximum hype, because that's what it's all about. But of course there are downsides to this whole hype culture. I personally think that Cyberpunk is a good example of hype done wrong. The hype train has overstayed its welcome. It's been way too long, but maybe it was intentional. It's implanted the slow building curiosity in people's minds about what this development team can do outside of the world of The Witcher. This is their first time making a game in a new IP, so maybe it's justified, but I don't know if it was a good idea. This is probably a good opportunity to talk about how hype culture can be bad, not only for the consumer who is left disappointed and waiting when games are delayed, but for the developers. This craze about crunch time is a pretty new thing. I mean, I'm sure there's been a vocal minority about it for years and years and years, but I've only begun to see it in the mainstream channels for the past couple of years. And it's a great movement. Developing games is something that takes artistry, and it's a shame when artists are abused for their passions. The same thing is present in the animation world. A young animator or a young game developer will be passionate about this career path. They want very badly to animate or develop games on a professional level, to the point where they'll put up with shitty working conditions if it means they can work towards their dream. But sadly, I think the average consumer just doesn't think about this. They want a good, finished product. The outcry about crunch time is mostly from hardcore fans of gaming on the internet, but the average Joe who doesn't open Reddit and Twitter every day to look at gaming discussions doesn't really come across the controversy ever. But it's certainly important. I'm of the opinion that the unionization of developers is pretty important, and there's plenty of great articles and information about what unionization would mean exactly, and I highly encourage you to read up on all of it if it interests you. But to go back to my question, to wrap this up really quick, why are games delayed? A game getting delayed can either be a really good sign or a really bad sign. On one hand, it means the developers care enough to put the time in to make a good product. It's not a rushed job just to capitalize on hype and cash out. It's a work of art that the developers want to be the best it can be. On the other hand, it can be a hint towards trouble in the development team. It really boils down to whether or not the developers are trustworthy. Nintendo delayed Animal Crossing, but Nintendo without fail delivers final products that are polished and developed with care, so I have no worries about that game. It's gonna come out, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be fantastic, but CD Projekt Red is less trustworthy, and I might get some flack for that, because I know Witcher 3 was fantastic. It's a well-crafted game, no matter how you look at it. You might hate it, you might love it, you have to applaud it in any case. But CD Projekt Red hasn't left the world of The Witcher, and The Witcher 3 was their first big title. Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be their opportunity to show whether they're just a one-hit wonder or a truly special development team. I'm rooting for Cyberpunk. I love what it's going for. I love the huge open world, I love the setting, I love the ambition of the project, but all I'm saying is I'm skeptical, and maybe you should be too. But what do I know? I'm just some schmuck. Tell me what you think in the comments, I guess. Whatever, don't pre-order this game.